Hello, hello.
Hello. What is going
Another
on?
week, another week down, another Giants legend. What do you know? Tom, what's going on?
What's up, George? What's up, Nick? Happy Friday, Friday Night Lights, I should say, and welcome to the 1925 New York Giants podcast, episode number 17. Quickly, before we bring up our awesome guest for the evening, he is a former Super Bowl champion. Friendly neighborhood reminder to please check us out on all of our social media platforms if you're new or haven't already. George, yes, on
Do it. Do
Instagram,
your thing.
Twitter, and YouTube at 1925, the New York Giants podcast.
There it
I see
is. Go ahead,
Uncle
Buckeye
Jesse's
fans.
riding, right?
Uncle Jesse's riding along. It's Friday night. He's out on his bike here in New York City. Speaking of New York City, the face of the New York, New Jersey backfield in the mid 80s and late 80s, Joe Morris, George. Awesome guest tonight. Why don't you introduce him for us?
All right, strap in, folks. We're going for a ride tonight. Joe Morris, Super Bowl champion, top 40 New York Giant, all time, first team All Pro, two-time Pro Bowler. This dude ran like a menace. And you know what? I mean, people that don't know who he is, look him up. Joe Morris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure to be here.
What's
for
going
stopping
on?
by.
How's things going tonight?
Well, I'm good. I spoke to my granddaughter and my grandson today. Got to see them on video today. So, that's a neat thing to have that ability to do that now. I'm just so proud of the parents that my daughters are. And Blake and her husband are doing a wonderful job. My other daughter decided to do it by herself, and she has a wonderful daughter too. So I'm just proud of them, and that's what my pride is about now.
That's awesome. At the end of the day, after all the accolades, what really matters is family, man.
Yeah, it always has been. And a guy asked me one time, said, Joe, what makes you get up every day and do the things you do? I says, I had two parents who loved me. I said, I'm one of six. I'm the third oldest child. I'm the oldest son. So a lot of what was expected of me. My dad told me, he says, Joe, you have to blaze trails for your brothers. You got three younger brothers, and they have to follow after you. You have to go out and set an example for them. I tried to do that in everything I did. I had a chance to go to Boston College, had a chance to go to Holy Cross, had a chance to go here, to go there. Syracuse challenged me. And I think the thing that drew me there was the fact that Jim Brown played there, Floyd Little played there, Henry Davis played there, Larry Zonka played there, John Mackey played there. And when I got there, there was a guy named Mark Monk playing running back. And I remember Coach Coughlin saying this exactly. He says, Joe, if you can handle the running back thing for us, Art Monk should be playing wide receiver. And this guy went on to be a tremendous player because he got out of the backfield because I was able to run the ball for Syracuse and Art could catch the ball. And the guy said to me, he said, well, all you have to do is key on you and Art. I says, yeah, that's not how it works, but trust me. If you double Art, somebody else is going to be open. I says, that's how we got better as a team, and that's how we did things. Tom Coughlin changed my life for the best. And when I came here to New York to play, and a guy said to me, he said, Joe, what's all this knowledge you have? You know, you had to read defenses, you want to do all these things. I said, why is it? I said, because Tom Coughlin put it into my head that I had to learn these things to be successful. And he said, Joe, I don't know if you're going to play the next level, but I do know this. You have the ability if you take advantage of it.
So you had a little bit of a sneak peek to Tom Coughlin. So how was he in his younger days coming up the coaching ranks?
He was, okay, as much as people think he's calmed down a lot, he was at that time in my career, he was the perfect person for me because I was 17 years old, away from home for the first time in my life, and just thinking to myself, I've got to make this so my brothers get recruited, my mom and dad can save money on tuition. And I'm thinking to myself, I remember meeting him during my official Syracuse visit. And he said to me, he says, I'm not really worried about your height. I'm not worried about what you weigh. I'm not worried about, he says, I want to know if you're able to go out there and play. He said, I need people who are smart. I need people who can think. I need people who I can count on. He said, Joe, if you're one of those players, that's what you're. He says, your dad's background and military background and things he's done for you, the discipline he's given you, that will help you along the thing, but you have to grow and you have to learn the game. Now, at first thought, I'm thinking, okay, I understand my offense that I played for in high school. I knew what we were doing and running the veer offense. I got it. He said, but Joe, it's not that. It says, here's what the things you need to do. You need to know what the defenses is. You know what they're trying to do to stop you. And you also need to be able how to counteract those things. He said, Joe, you need to be able to think outside the lines. Then you have to know everybody's job on the offense's job. He says, quarterback making a call comes in and says something to you. If you can see something that can help him avoid something, you try to do that. And I told that one of my teammates one time. They looked at me like, what the hell does that matter when you playing running back? I go, well, here's the thing. Everything you're trying to set somebody up to make them think something. I says, I adjust my stance sometimes just so I can get a linebacker thinking, Joe's doing something different this time because I want to make sure we're not missing the key. And he said to me, he says, Joe, you're playing with their minds. I go, yeah, and make them think about what they're doing and why they're doing it.
That's incredible. Joe, at what age did you realize, you talk about Syracuse and high school and growing up, what age did you realize around that you were different athletically?
Well, here's the thing. I was a fast kid from the time I was maybe 4th, 5th grade, but I could run as fast as high school kids then, and I knew I had some talent. I didn't know what it was going to be. I never had any thought in my mind, and truly, I'm humbled by the things I was able to do. But I just started believing in myself and started saying to myself, "This is what I want to do." And you got a mom, you got a dad. You got a dad that's a military veteran. He's a special forces guy. 3 trips to Vietnam, and he came back safely back to his family and raised us. We moved from North Carolina to Massachusetts, whatever. And I was just glad to have him there because when he's not there, I'm the man of the house. I got to watch over my mom and my 2 older sisters. Then I got 3 younger brothers I got to worry about. So I'm just happy. I was just happy to have my dad back and be there. And he means the world to me. I still have him, and I'm just so thankful for that. It means a lot to have your father.
Absolutely.
Sure does. So, being a smaller running back than what was probably prototypical at the time, were people doubting you from the beginning? Were you shutting those doubts down right away? Did that follow you in your pro career?
Yeah, it followed me in the pro career because here's the thing. You first get here, first thing they think is this right here. I had a coach tell me, we didn't want you that spot. We wanted somebody else. I go, and who did you want? He says, well, he's a defensive lineman. I go, okay. I said, I'm not that. He says, but we drafted a running back in the first round. I go, yeah, I know. I says, you drafted Butch Woolfolk. I got it. I understand. I says, but what was funny, I remember seeing Coach Perkins at the time. He said to me, he says, Joe Morris, you're the only man that looked me straight in the eye. And I thought to myself, Coach, I'm not afraid of you. I said, I have a father, meanest man in the world. Trust me, a lot tougher than you ever be. So I'm gonna look you right in the eye because that's who I am. I said, you want to look me try to scare me? I want to make sure you know that doesn't bother me because I have a father who's a lot tougher than you, and trust me, a lot harder on me than you'll ever be.
Would you say your father tested you mentally as well as physically, preparing that, and it helped shape your development?
Yeah, I think he did. He said to me these exact words when he left for the last tour he was going on. He said to me, he said, son, I need you to be the man of the house. You're 8, 9, 10 years old, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm the man of the house. I'm thinking I said, Mom's tougher than I am, Dad. What are you talking about? What can I do? He says, son, all I need you to do is hold the fort down until I'm back. And when he came back, I was just so grateful to have my father back, and because people had lost over in Vietnam, and a lot of people lost lives over there. And I was just happy to have my dad back and have him listen. But here's the thing: when I got that, I knew that. I told my brother, I says, "You're going to see discipline like you've never seen before, but you have never seen it because she's not been around your dad." I says, "I got enough because trust me, I'm old enough to remember. You 3, no." So Larry, Mike, and Jamie, they kind of reintroduced to their dad, and they said, "Damn, Joe, you had to put up with." I said, "Yep, by myself before you guys got here. So trust me." I said, he always knows what you're doing. And they go, "We need he always." I says, "You think he doesn't know what you're doing? He does." I says, "That's how your father is." I says, "Here's the thing: what's gonna happen to you is you're gonna realize you're gonna start talking like him sometimes. You're gonna be acting like him sometimes because that's what his personality is. Because he did things right. He came from nothing. He built himself up. He did everything he had to do. He came from a very poor background where he had to go to work earlier on. He had to leave school early to join the Army because he had to help his family. So that's what it was. He never wanted that for us. He wanted us all to get college educations. And he had 2 daughters who went to college. He had 4 sons that went to college. All of them have degrees except for one. And trust me, he's still on that one, but about that to this day. He says to him, he says, look, son, why waste your time? He said, look, you need to have that degree. I says, I know it doesn't matter, but here's the thing. Wouldn't it feel better if you finished? And that's motivation to him. Type of man he was. And think about this. When I graduated from Syracuse, I remember someone said, Joe, you're carrying the flag for your college. I go, yeah, I am. He goes, are your grades that good? I says, no, my grades weren't that good. I said, but here's the thing. They got better every year because my father said, I see your grades every time. I know I don't pay for you to go to school, but guess what? I'm your father. You respect me. So that's how it was. So he seen my grades before I seen my grades. Now I was an adult, supposedly, but I didn't work in his house. Didn't work in his house.
Joe, you talked a lot about, your upbringing and, your time at Syracuse. What was recruiting like back then compared to today going into college?
Well, here's the thing. There are so many kids. I talk to so many high school kids now about, he says, well, Joe, back in the day, I said, no. There was no money involved. There was none of that. You were lucky if someone seen you. Funny thing about it is, I got recruited this way to Syracuse. We used to scrimmage a team in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. And Syracuse had a scout. His name is Dave Zuccarelli. He said, are there any outstanding players we should go see? And the coaches from that team said, hey, look, there's a kid up in the air, Massachusetts, that you should go see. He says he's a little short, but this guy can run. He's tough. He can play defense. He can play offense. He can do anything you want him to do. He said, but, he's a little short. He says, and Dave said, well, what do you mean by that? He says, well, he's only 5'7". I don't think he's getting any bigger, but, you got to go see him. Dave Zuccarelli shows up at campus. Next day I see him on campus. I'm talking to him, this and that. And everybody's looking at me thinking, Joe, there's a guy from Syracuse. You know that such and such went there and such. I don't know where Syracuse is. I have no idea what you're talking about. And that was my ignorance at the time. And when you start looking at things and seeing things in real time, okay, you read about Ernie Davis, you read about Jim Brown, you read about Flora Little, you read about Larry Zonka, you think about John Mackey. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this is one great place to go to school, this and that. Okay, but what if I go to school there and if it doesn't work out? How's that going to look? Or, how do I go there and try to, set my mark, do the things I want to do? And, I set a goal. I set a simple goal. I want to go there. I want to make my father proud because he dropped me off. He drove me 6 hours, dropped me off, got back in the car, drove back to the house, take care of his other kid and said, don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass your mother. And if you forget everything else, don't embarrass me. That's it. He says, if you have a problem, we'll have a problem. And I remember him saying to me, he says, I remember he said this to me. He says, we came up for Parents Weekend. And my dad went up to the coach who recruited me. He says, Dave, let me say this to you. If Joe doesn't play today, I'm going to take him home in the car because this is bullshit. Joe should be playing. and that's how my dad is. He just said, look, Joe's thinking, I said to my dad, I don't know what to say. I said, I'm trying, Dad. I started that game. I rushed for 114 yards. We still lost. And my dad says, son, you need to stay here. You need to develop your skills here. You need to do these things. He said, this is a good place for you, Joe. I think this is be a good place for you. He says, I've always liked Dave. He told me the truth. It was truthful. He said, if your size is not a problem, you'll be able to play here. And trust me, and I thank my dad for that every day. I'm just grateful for everything I did at my Syracuse career from my dad's standpoint.
So you mentioned you were 5'7". You were a big 5'7", though. I mean, you were like a brick running down the field. No, I'm serious. Like you don't look 5'7" in the video. You look like a brick shithouse personally. Did you have a developmental moment in college where you thought like to yourself, holy shit, I might be able to be NFL caliber, ready to go?
Here's the funny thing, and I'm going to say this to you, and this is how funny how life works sometimes. I remember playing in a game in the Orange Bowl. My freshman year, we're playing the Miami Hurricane. They have Otis Anderson over there. His number is 47. Just by coincidence, my number is number 47. I'm playing for the Syracuse Orange. He rushes for 1,000 yards that night. And guess what I do? I rushed for 1,000 yards for the first time at Syracuse in a lot of years. Then I get hurt. Then I'm out of the game. But it's just weird. And think about that. You turn around and times he goes on to play for the Cardinals for a while. Then he comes to play for the Giants. It's just weird how our lives are intertwined that way. So it's just that's a funny tidbit. The guy says, "How do you remember that?" I said, "Trust me, you remember stuff like that." I said, "I remember what Otis did that night. He was wearing the same number I was wearing. It was just the weirdest thing to ever have had it. Two number 47s going for 1,000 yards in the same game in a college game. Really weird."
Were you guys able to talk that night? Kind of, shake his hand and
you know what's funny about that is I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but he just kept thinking. He says, "Damn, why does that guy got number 47 on? Why is he doing that? That's my number." And I said to him, I said, "Otis, that is the funniest thing I've ever heard because they told me you were number 47." I go, because I was playing him during the week for the defense, and I said, "Damn, that guy wears number 47." They have enough shirts to give somebody else something else. I go, "Well, why? Why does he have that number?" He said, he chose that number. I go, "Yeah, you gave me this number. I didn't want that number, but whatever. It's whatever it is." But
that's funny.
And so and see, and the guy said to me, he says, "Joe, isn't that kind of funny?" I says, when Otis came here in 1986 to play for the Giants, my number one job was to make sure he was ready to play, make sure he knew the calls, he knew the pickups, he knew everything that I did everything I could to help him prepare him. We had Lewis Tillman, who was a younger guy. I wanted Lewis to know what he was doing, so he could go in there if he had to go in and play for me. I wanted Lee Rousson to know exactly what he's supposed to do if he had to go for me. My job is to teach people everything I could so nobody would get our quarterback hurt. Phil Simms is going to win us a Super Bowl. I remember Parcells saying that. He says, "We can protect this guy and win us a Super Bowl." Sure enough, that's what we did.
Yeah, you guys ended up being pretty successful, I'd say. What was it like though? Back to college for a minute. What was the toughest environment you ever set foot in?
Jesus. Okay. The Miami game was you see a lot of speed, a lot of people, a lot of ability. And I rushed for 1,000 yards, but trust me, that was hard to do because they had guys that could run, defensive linemen that would run as fast as I could. And I'm like, damn, that's kind of different kind of thing. Okay. Think about this now. Tony Dorsett was at Pitt, so I'm playing against him, and I'm thinking Tony Dorsett, and I got 100 yards the same day he did, and I'm thinking, man, and people thinking Joe Morris got 100 yards a day against the Pittsburgh defense. How's he doing that? And I remember what the hell, Bill Neal was a no tackle play here. He was in the game. He says, "What the hell were you guys running?" I says, "It wasn't a counter." I says, "Bill, every time you went to the left, I knew exactly what you were trying to come back with. That little blitz scheme you got to run." He goes, "But how'd you know we were going to do it?" I says, "Because every time you used to move your feet, change your feet right before the stance and snap of the ball." He goes, "How the hell did you recognize that?" I said, "I have a coach. Trust me, I have a coach." I said, Coughlin said, "Joe, when he does that, that's where the hole's going to be." And it like threw him off. He said, "What the hell are you talking?" I said, "Coach Coughlin figured out when you change your way to your stance, he knows where you're going to go, Bill." He said, "Linebackers can't make up for what you're doing because if you don't get there and make that play, it's not made." So that's why I had success against him. I said, I hated seeing Hugh Green, but damn, he was out there. And he said, "Joe, you got to block Hugh Green on this play." I go, "Yeah, I'm going to tackle him just so you know. I'm going to grab him around the leg." I didn't want to mess with Mr. Green. I go, "Hey, I just want to get away from that, man. Just get away from that." And I watched the guys that are on my team that were linebackers. I played with a guy named Jim Collins, played for a lot of years for the Los Angeles Rams. And I had nothing but respect for Jim Collins. And that was the kind of same thing I had for linebackers in Pittsburgh. I go, "Geez, that guy's just great, man." I'm out there playing football against these guys. My mom says, "You ever think about it, Joe?" I go, "No, Mom. I'm just trying to go out there and do the best I can." I says, "I know if my grades are bad, my dad's going to whip my ass." I go, because he says, "Look," he said, "Joe, you are my first. I need you to set an example for your brothers." He says, "I never went to college." He said, "But here's the thing. You did. So you need to graduate, because here's the thing. I need to create that kind of thing with your 3 brothers. And like I remember Bush Schemberger meeting me at the East-West Shrine game. He goes, hey, I want to talk to you about something. I said, okay, Coach, what do you want to know? He goes, now I've heard this story, but I want to make sure you clear it up with me. I said, okay, go ahead. Say what you got to say. I says, I have no problem with it. He goes, I hear your brother wants to come to Syracuse. He wants to go to Syracuse. I go, my brother Jamie? No, he doesn't want to go to Syracuse. He wants to go to Michigan. I said, yeah. He goes, could you tell me why? He's got 2 brothers there playing there, and you played there. I go, yeah. Jamie's always been a Michigan fan. He's always loved your helmets. I don't know why. It's crazy as it sounds. I go, hey, that's what he was. And I go like this. I go, Coach, I think Jamie really wants to be in that type of a program. I says, he's the flashiest guy I've ever met in my life. And I'm trying to teach him all these things I can do. But I said, but here's the thing. He really wants to go there. He said, Joe, tell you what I'll do. I'm going to recruit this little guy. I'm going to see what he can do. If he's anything like you and he has any kind of heart you got to do, I guarantee I'll give him a chance. I said, okay. I said, Coach, tell you what. If I got to the NFL, and if I'm playing in the NFL, and if he doesn't work out, I'll pay for a second semester myself. Then he can transfer to somebody else. His freshman year, Jamie goes out there and does what he's supposed to do. I get a call from the coach right before the playoff. He goes, hey, you know who this is on the phone here? I says, Coach, I definitely know who you are, sir. I says, Mr. Schemberger. He goes, I think this kid's going to work out for me. He's special. Just like you were special for Syracuse, he's going to be special for me. And Jamie went on to be great at Michigan. So I was very proud of what Jamie did. And because he left his brothers, went to Michigan out by himself in the middle of the country, and became a player. And then he went on to play for the Redskins and he played for the Patriots for a while. So trust me, Jamie's been around, he's done it. He's seen it all. So thankful for that too, because, and the guy said to me, he said, well, Joe, don't you think you just got lucky? I go, lucky. Yeah, I played 9 years in the NFL, so yeah, I don't think it's luck to play football that long. I go,
No.
I said, I guess we could say it was luck. I said, but here's the thing. I said, well, nobody else believed in me. My mom and dad did. And my mom said, Joe, it'll come. And I kept thinking, I said, Mom, hope it comes soon, because man, it's getting hard to do this. Go to training camp every year, and somebody said to me, well, Joe, you got to work on your backup role. I go, yeah, okay, backup role, you got to do this. And I remember somebody saying to me, I remember a guy saying something to me one time, and I thought it was funny. I tried to be calm, and I tried to be whatever it was. And he was talking to me. He says, "Still, it's a big game today. We're playing the Cowboys today." I said, "Okay, yeah, all right, whatever." He goes, and he says, "You got any points you can give me right now?" I said, "Yeah, I can help you out." I said, "Look, tell you what. Remember this little double seam pass. Make sure you get yourself outside the numbers." It's why I says, "Make sure you get yourself outside the numbers. If you don't, Michael Downs is going to cave in your chest." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I says, "You're not the primary receiver on this thing. The tight end is." Said, "You are the distraction. You run down the numbers. That's what you're supposed to do." I said, if they don't cover you, he'll throw the ball to you. But if you don't run outside the numbers, Michael Downs will break your rib cage. I go, all right, no problem. Game comes up. I see the play call. I look at it. I go, I said, dumbass, get outside the numbers. Run the play. He goes inside the numbers. Guess what happens? Taking him out on the stretcher.
It's fucked up.
Joe, you're in. Hey, I'm in. Finish the game. Blah, 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 blah. Ran the play again. That time I'm outside the numbers. I catch the ball. Get a 15-yard gain. We keep going. He's on the sidelines. If I'd have just listened to you, I go, yeah, dumbass, you should have listened.
That's great.
You tell people that, and they look at the guy looks at me and goes, man, why didn't you tell me more? I go, I did tell you. I told you on Monday. I told you on Tuesday. I told you on Wednesday. I said, I even said to you on Sunday before the game, make sure you get outside the numbers. Then you told me I don't give a shit. I said, okay. When he caved his chest in, I looked at him and I go, yeah, you should listen to what I said, didn't you, dumbass? Hey, whatever. But,
some people do have to learn the hard way. That's all they know.
Yeah. So. I refer to that as a life lesson. I have two children. Yeah, one of them's a teenage boy. I call those life lessons,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely see that.
Put some dirt on it and just, get up and keep moving.
So speaking of the Giants, do you remember what it was like the exact moment you were drafted? What was that like?
I guess I was surprised. I had no idea they had any interest in me. I remember seeing Ray Perkins. I remember I'd seen him at the scouting combine. I remember George walking by me one time, and I'm thinking, I'm 5'7". I'm not getting any taller. I'm not going to try to do anything else. I'm just going to try to be myself. Go out and run the best time I can in the 40, the cone drill or whatever the hell we're going to be doing there, and just catching the ball and doing things. I'd done all those things before. I had a coach like Coughlin, so trust me, I was prepared as I could be for this thing. But you're out there, you're trying to think. I don't know how you impress anybody. Okay, you had one, and then that was when they had 3 different places they'd have little combines at.
Yep.
You had one in Dallas. You had one. Dallas. I don't know the Dallas trip, because the Dallas trip I went to. The one that, the Senior Bowl down the Senior Bowl had that going on too. Senior Bowl had that going on too, same kind of thing, where they were down there doing that. And then, it was one other place. And they had one out in California. They had one in the middle of the state, and one they had. Then they moved it to Indianapolis. And I remember being at all 3 of those combine things, and I'm thinking to myself, "Damn, it's a lot of stuff just to look at some players, and just to." And I didn't give it any thought. Okay. It was like the first time I actually felt like I was in the Army, and not like my dad, because my dad, he was a real warrior, and I'm just playing football. But I thought, damn, I was just people just standing around, just doing nothing, and it was weird, but it was there.
So after being drafted, what was it like to walk into that locker room for the first time from the Giants, and who intimidated you immediately? Was there anybody that was an imposing figure, not very welcoming?
Okay, let me just say this to you. That was the most intimidating locker room I've ever seen in my life. Let me just say this to you. Lawrence Taylor was a legend. But Harry Carson was the man. Him and George Martin were the 2 guys that ran that team, and that was how it was. And there's a culture you need to fit into. You work hard. I had some good people that I've met. I started playing basketball with some of the guys and doing stuff like that just to get to know them better. Mark Haynes, who I played against at the Super Bowl when he went out from Denver, left the Giants and went to Denver, was one of my closest friends, and I hated to see him go, but it was time for him to go because there was a situation there. But he always taught me, he said, Joe, just keep doing your job, do the things you're supposed to do. Don't worry about anything you can't control. He says, you can't control everything, but you can control what you do. Get yourself ready, make sure you're ready to go. He said, the opportunity comes, he's going to be there. I'm playing behind Butch. I know that. They've got, thoughts they're going to do. They're going to move people around, do this, do that. And I just, Mark was there for me. He taught me how to be a professional. He taught me how to go out and carry myself. He taught me to look. He said, Joe, don't be smiling. Your job is to learn. Everything that Butch screws up, you're supposed to remember, and you're supposed not to forget it. He says, anything he does, you have to remind him about what's right. And I would talk to him about Butch about that. Butch would say, Joe, you're not playing. I go, I got it. But I'm telling you, that play is supposed to go outside. And you need to, that's how it was. And, when I got playing time and started playing a little bit, I remember the first time somebody said, I wish Joe was in on this play. And the coach looked and says, why would that help? He says, because Joe would stretch the ball as far as it could go to the outside, didn't cut it back inside. Mm-hmm. And one game, the coach said to me, he says, yeah, you go in and do that a couple of times, Joe. I want to see if that works. And funny thing how it worked. I'm averaging 7 yards a carry. Now Rob Carpenter's averaging 7 yards a carry. People say, damn, that worked out pretty good for you guys at that stretch play going pretty good. Yo, yeah. So why didn't you guys do this earlier? And all I said to myself was, okay, maybe somebody's looking, maybe somebody's actually listening, but whatever it is. And that's the thing about the game of football. You don't know when your opportunity is going to come. And I remember somebody saying to me out loud, said, Joe, you were a 2nd round draft pick. Man, you were a bad 2nd round draft. I says, I haven't been able to chance to get on the field. Every time I've been on the field, I've done my job. I've done everything they've asked me to do. I says, I can do no more than what they allow me to. And I said, now look, I'm not going to downgrade myself and make myself feel sad about something I can't control. I said, I'm going out there to try to compete and win a job. I said, it wasn't there when I first started out. I said, but when it became available, it was there for me. Said after the 84 season, when I started the last part of the year, and I remember him saying this out loud. He said this out loud. He goes, "Yeah, Joe, you got to be our featured guy." I go, "Okay." Next year, 1985 comes around. They go out and draft George. I go, "Damn, I only got 1 year. I got. What do I got? I got." So I think, okay, Sam Rush, I had my best year. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, no problem. I got 2 guys. I got George and Lee Rousseau. And then this is the difference between me and everybody else. All the guys who were there before I got there, they wouldn't talk to the rookies because they were the people that were. I taught George everything I knew. I taught Lee Rousseau everything I know. You know why I did that? I wanted them to be prepared. I didn't want Phil to get killed or them miss a blitz or not know where they were supposed to be, because here's why. If they get my quarterback hurt, we can't win. So that's what you do.
Right. I'm sure there was, as a rookie, early on in your career, there might have been some shockwaves here and there. What shocked you about NFL football upon entering, and who helped you out a lot in your early years?
Early years. Mark Haynes was a great mentor for me because I could look at him. I didn't have a family at the time. George Martin modeled the family, the family values, man. He had kids. He was thinking about winning for them. And, I'm coming from a family of 6, and we had, 8 people in our family. And I'm thinking I'm gonna have a family someday. And I want to make sure I model some of my teammates and how they did things. Now, some of my teammates, whatever, but some of them were family men. I wanted to be a family man one day. I wanted to do that. I wanted to make sure I did right by my kids and did things by them. And someone said to me, Joe, there's a lot of things you don't seem to know about. I go, yeah, I know a lot of things you don't know, and I'm not going to be mentioning them here, but I'll tell you this. I said, I've seen some stuff, and I don't want to know about it. I said, look, that's what professional football is like sometimes. I said, but here's the thing. Most of the time, it's about one thing, going out and winning. And I said, that's what I had to focus on. And I never lost focus of that. And when I wasn't playing or I was just sitting on the bench, I was getting myself ready. I was going through mental reps in my head, thinking about what I could do to help this team. When I got the chance, I tried to show people I had the ability to do things. And the last thing I remember saying to me, I remember Ray Perkins saying this before he left to go to Alabama. He goes, Joe, I saved you. You'd have got killed with the offensive line we had. So trust me. Trust me. You are a lot better off not playing that, because trust me, those guys up there, they have right there. No. He said, we got to build, and we got to build. And that's what I was going to try to do. It's going to get the tackle. I was going to do this. And I said, okay, coach, I get it. And here's the thing. Now, when I started having success in 1985, he sent me a note. He says, didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you? He said, I remember I started shooting the St. Louis game. You had 50 yards. You had 50 yards in a quarter. He said, now, I told you, I knew you had the ability. He said, but remember, what did I do? I took you out of the game. He said, why did I take you out of the game? I wanted you to have a feel for what you were doing, but I also wanted you to know you have the ability to play in this league. And I said, Coach, I said, thank you so much for that. So,
yeah. So going back to 85, when you're starting to get your feet wet in the league, did you have a moment where you either got blown up or hit where you were like, holy shit, the NFL's different? Like, did it feel different? The speed, the impact of the hits. You had to have that first moment where you're like, "Oh shit!"
I guess when you're the guy, it changes. And let me tell you how it changes. You have to show up. You have to be ready. You have to be prepared. All the years of Tom Coughlin's wisdom, he'd given me a lot of confidence in how to study film, how to watch film, how to do things, how to break down teams. See where guys are lining up. What are they doing? How do they see things? When I look at an offense, I'm always looking for everybody and where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to be on a play. If I'm running or passing, in a passing game, how do I influence a linebacker or a safety by what I do? I remember in 86. Yeah, we're out in San Francisco on a Monday night game. I remember this like it was yesterday. And the guy said to me, he says, the 49ers are going to stop you today. I go, okay. I said, did they do that? I said, Phil Simms will destroy you. The guy goes, no, we're not worried about Simms. I go, I said, trust me, Phil Simms is a very good quarterback. I said, nobody's seen him play because he's never had people around him to help him. I said, that was the night Mark McBarrow carried half their team down the field.
Yeah.
I caught my first touchdown pass. Nobody thought I could catch. and here's the thing. And the guy said to me, he says, Joe, he said, but here's the funny thing. They stopped you all night. I said, for 3rd and 1. You got 15 yards on 1 carry. Now, think about this for a second. So all the other runs I had up to end up with 13 yards for the whole game. So we play them in the playoff game against Giant Stadium. Purcell started calling the offensive lineman Club 13. That's how many yards. That's how many yards your starting running back got against the 49ers. He says, now look, if Joe Morris doesn't have a good day today, your offensive lineman are going to run him for the rest of your lives. In the first quarter, in the first half of the game, I had 160 yards easy. I already scored two touchdowns. And it was just getting it started. And trust me, my offensive line did a wonderful job that day. And trust me, that Club 13 game, that really changed our guys up front. They really made sure. I ran through them like they were standing there. And the guy said to me, Joe, what is it about you? I said, trust me, my guys got embarrassed on Monday Night Football. They didn't like that. That's why we played that way.
That's great. Now, you mentioned Tom Coughlin a lot, but what was it like? Oh, I think we lost Tom for a minute. Oh, there he is. Sorry about that. You mentioned Tom Coughlin a lot, but what was it like working with Bill, and what was he like behind closed doors?
Bill's a different kind of guy. Bill Parcells is a showman. He's someone who wants to do things. He wants to convince you can do things you're not sure you can do. But I think for me, he taught me some things. But the people who influenced me most were my position coach. I had Ray Hanley for a while. I had I had a lot of things we talked about on the sidelines about reads and thinking about what pass routes we were running and how we were doing things. And I had people that challenged me about things, and it asked me questions about certain things. And I would just refer back to what I grew up with Coughlin, and trust me, my dad, Tom Coughlin, Parcells, Ray Hanley. These are all people they play into my thing, and they make me think about what I do. And I said, Joe, this is what I need to do. I need to make a couple adjustments on some of your routes or this and that. I said, Joe, when the offensive linemen want to make sure if you're telling them to move out a little bit more on certain plays, are we good with this? I said, yeah, we're going to be good with it. But I said, but remember, I'm not going to be doing it every play. I'm going to just try to mix it up a little bit, give somebody a different look. So one of the linebackers one time says to me, hey, he sees me someplace, he goes, come here, I want to talk to you, Joe Morris. I said, okay, what is it? He goes, what the hell were you doing with that play out there? I go, he goes, he said, Joe, you were at 4 yards when you ran that play. I go, yeah, I know. He says, why'd you do that? I says, because I could. He goes, what do you mean you could? I says, you watch tape, right? He goes, yep. How many times I lined up at 4 yards? He says, 12. How many times I lined up at 5? He says, 12. And he says, how many times I lined up at 7? He says, 3. I said, uh-huh. I said, now figure that out. He goes, I'm doing something to you. He goes, what? I says, I'm giving you a false read, dumbass. He looks at me again. He goes, why would you do that to me? I said, because you are doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out what you're doing. He says, give me an example of that. I said, Rich Malott, when he played for the Redskins, he was going to run this coffee move where defensive end would rush in, he'd rush around the outside, and that would be my guy. I wouldn't even when he did the move in the inside, I just go, oh, he's coming around the outside. I just wait for him on the outside. I didn't have to do anything to wait for him. He said, so how do you know I was doing it? I said, every time you do this, Rich, you take a step back.